Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. We have the situation change on the front lines, unfortunately not in favor of Ukraine, and today we're going to review how dangerous it is really for Ukrainian armed forces on the east. We're speaking about the region of Ocheretine. You may see the Russian advancement once again, but it started to happen not just in this place, also over here. To understand the picture in general, let's go to the timeline. So it was yesterday, I'm gonna go a little bit to the south, and it is today. Again, yesterday and today. So Russia has advanced in two of the directions. One is here and the other one is over here. Let's go to the satellite image to see more detailed picture, especially in Ocheretine. So definitely Russia occupied Novobakhmutovka. We have the confirmation about it also from the Ukrainian sources, and also they went to Solovyevo. And the gray area has already been extended to all of this village. Moreover, Russia has the advancement vector directly to the south, so their goal is to cut the part of Ukrainian army near Berdichi. The picture looks very difficult for Ukrainian army, as it was forecasted by Ukrainian intelligence that during the May and June Ukraine might lose some of the territories. However, I think that it is temporary because Ukraine now starts to obtain weaponry from the United States. So Ukrainian army has high chances to turn the situation upside down for Russians, but there is the huge risk that Russia might occupy this area the next month for sure if they are able to keep the current pace. So here we have the river, and Russia actually doesn't need to cross the river any longer. Many of the military bloggers, together with myself, we thought that Russia is unable to cross this river because it's the natural obstacle. Ukraine actually keeps the high ground in the area, but with this maneuver, Russia doesn't need to cross it. They may basically push Ukrainians from this area. This area is difficult for Ukrainian army because basically those are the fields. Russia continued to use aviation bombs and artillery. As I told you many times, there were no significant defense lines built by Ukrainian army, and those which were built were focused on the Russian attack from this side, not from the north. So what is happening out there is very dangerous for Ukraine. We heard that many experts, especially from Ukrainian side, blame the command of 115th Brigade. However, I still don't have the evidence whether it's definitely the fault of the command of the particular brigade, because after all, high generals are responsible for defense. It's their duty to organize it properly. The only information we have from the mainstream media about 115th Brigade is coming from Forbes. A Ukrainian brigade disappeared and a Russian brigade almost broke through. How the battle for Ocheretine appended the war in Ukraine this week. So they say that definitely 115th Brigade left its positions. And definitely Russia broke through Ukrainian defense in this area. However, Ukraine still has defense lines after Ocheretine, but more to the north. They are more robust. I do not exclude that in 2 or 3 days Ukraine would have to retreat from all of this territory to the other defense lines, more to the west. And we have the confirmation from the Moscow 73 that Russia definitely advances in Ocheretine quite fast, and also to the south from the same village. So here's a big question for the nearby future. But in general, for the Ukrainian army, it's not the catastrophic one. And Russia now starts their attack near Keramik and Novokalinovo village. But they have again the water obstacle, so here we have the river, it goes like that, creating the natural obstacle against the Russian forces. But here they might try to advance from this side because they already occupied this area. It is now the most successful Russian advancement for the last couple of months after they occupied Avdiivka. Also, Russian army continued their advancement near Marinka in Krasnohorivka towards this place. Let's check out the timeline. So yesterday and today, the advancement in this area is much lighter compared to our previous case. The fights for Krasnohorivka might continue for a very long time because it's quite a big settlement. Ukraine was able to organize defense in this area, so it's not easy work for the Russian army if we speak about Marinka direction. As you can see, in Krasnohorivka, Russia uses lots of the aviation bombs and artillery fire. This tool, in combination with the mid waves, helps Russians to advance. But we also have the good news from the Chasiv Yar, Bakhmut direction, so no good news are the good news for Ukraine today. Russia tried to advance to the settlement but was stopped by Ukrainian defenders, and there is no movement for the last week. Just Ukrainian achievement with a light counterattack. Ukraine attempts to cut supplies for the Russian army in Ivanovsk. Alright, and now let's go to some of the other news and why Russian attacks finally will be stopped in the future in a few months. We know that the United States of America, a key partner and ally of Ukraine, has announced a new military package of $1 billion United States dollars, which is the part of the military support bill that was voted recently. For now, we are sure that Ukraine will obtain ATACMS and many more other things. Well, today we have even more interesting news that the United States is preparing to announce a $60 billion package in weapons contracts for Ukraine, and it is a separate bill from the major one. According to Politico source, it will be announced in the coming days, maybe even tomorrow. For the first time, United States will supply Patriot systems to Ukraine, as well as many of the drones and other tools to defend Ukrainian territory, also air-to-air missiles, which will be installed on F-16s. However, Ukraine will not obtain this weaponry right away. It will gradually receive munition and other tools. For how long, we don't have the time limits in this article. We need to wait for official confirmation from the White House. Hopefully it will come out very soon. More also news about the United States military support. According to the New York Times, for example, it's been agreed between the United States and Ukraine that Ukraine might use ATACMS to target Crimea. Well, Russian targets in Crimea. As article mentions, it was said by the representative of Pentagon during the briefing. The aim of the long-range missiles is to target Russian military infrastructure in Crimea, so create more pressure on the Russian forces in that region. Before we get the information that ATACMS already arrived to Ukraine, Zelensky also confirmed that Ukraine agreed on ATACMS supplies, so in the nearby future we'll see some of the strikes on Crimean facilities. And Russian soldiers in Crimea, I would be kind of scared on your place. Russian army definitely modernizes the Russian tanks, building those Bloodmobiles or the turtle tanks. You may see how robust the construction really is, and definitely it's really hard to aim this tank with a drone. It looks surreal, but this construction is working. FPV are unable to get those tanks. I analyzed some of the Russian videos, and I may say that at least 4 of those tank modifications were produced by the Russian soldiers. But on the last 2, I don't see the drone signal jammers, just this construction, that's it. Right, 5 tanks at least like that were produced. We have 1 more video published, and clearly it is the different tank. Also, Russia starts to modernize their infantry vehicles with the same nanotechnology. And the tank which we have just seen in the last video was caputed probably with the help of the mine. And I don't see that there is a drone jammer on the top, as it was in previous 2 modifications. The Economist says that Ukraine would need time to prepare for the future counteroffensive, possible counteroffensive actions, which might happen in 2026 or even in 2027. At the same time, White House officials said that this military help would be enough for this year and partially the beginning of the next one. So we are not speaking here about 2026 and 2027, even though this program for this package is kind of long, but the main part Ukraine obtains this year. Some of the representatives from the Western military intelligence say that Ukraine should cause Russians losses around 50,000 soldiers per 6 months. It will eliminate the possibility for Russia to create larger army, which will be more capable, but Russia has enormous resources, plus they might announce a new mobilization, and they are producing their weaponry, and some of the weaponry they even put aside. So yes, they have crisis with their tanks, but they still put aside some portion of the tanks which they are producing currently. For them it's better to waste some of the more mid-waves, but keep the tanks secured, the part of the tanks which they might use for other campaigns or in the other parts of Ukraine, because we know that Russia plans a bigger attack which might happen very soon. Jens Stoltenberg admitted that Ukraine didn't get enough military support that was promised before, and that led to the territorial losses by Ukrainian army. Meanwhile, we know that Russia obtains military support even from North Korea and Iran. That's why they're now more capable, especially with artillery shells. The news from Belarus: a self-proclaimed president of the republic, Lukashenko, said that Belarus opposition plans to attack the territory of the country through the Korbinsky corridor, take the power of the region and call NATO to intervene with their forces. At the same time, Belarus KGB reported about the drone attacks that was prevented by the Belarus forces. I wouldn't say that the tensions are rising in Belarus region, no. They have their own politician game and Lukashenko plays his own role in it. Literally, he said that he went to look for nuclear missiles that were delivered by Russians in some of the military facility of Belarus, and he hugged the warhead. Really reminds me this clip on YouTube. Pope Francis again says that negotiations is better than a war without the end, so the same rhetorics we might hear from Elon Musk. The problem, definitely the problem for Ukraine, that okay, even if Ukraine negotiates right now with Russia, giving the part of the territory to the aggressor, there are no any guarantees that Russia wouldn't strike Ukraine once again. And we continue to hear from the Russian officials the rhetorics, the harsh rhetorics towards Ukraine itself, that they want to denazify all of the country. It means that they want to occupy the country. For them, Ukraine is anti-Russia, and it's the major goal of Vladimir Putin to get rid of Ukraine during his presidential term. So negotiations would lead not to the end of the war, but to the frozen conflict, as it already was in 2014 or 15. Then Minsk agreements were signed, but after 8 years, Russia anyways attacked Ukraine. On the other hand, if the war continues like it is right now, it will bring severe losses for Ukrainian population, and without the proper military support, Ukraine would continue to lose its territories. Yes, now we have a big military package, which might help Ukraine to fight for the next 1 or 2 years. But what happens next? Well, actually no one knows, but we know for sure that Putin is oriented to occupy Ukraine, and he is ready to continue the war as long as possible. He is goal-oriented. But whether Ukraine obtains the military support for this long term, I'm not sure. So actually the situation in general is difficult, but nevertheless, I'm sure that Ukraine finally will resist against the Russian aggression. So our allies should be prepared for the very long-term conflict. From my own perspective, I could be wrong. The only way for Ukraine to get the victory and to get all of the occupied territory is for the Russian regime to collapse. But Ukraine alone has no resource to do it, unfortunately, so our allies also should think like that the aim should be for the Russian KGB, ex-KGB regime or current FSB regime to cease its existence. It's the only way. And you know, it might happen even tomorrow. History shows us that dictators might lose power in a matter of days or even hours. This is the result of using the North Korean shells. Yeah, sometimes they might just explode inside the barrel of the Russian artillery systems, as it happened here. This is D-30 Russian artillery, and you see the explosion was inside. I think Russia should have only North Korean shells in their army, but still they fire in most of the cases properly. We see more and more motorcycles on the front lines, so here are Ukrainian soldiers with the German-made electric bikes. Russia also uses motorcycles, but usually not the electric ones. Why the electric one is better? Because they produce much less noise compared to internal combustion engines. Guys, there are some of the videos that I'm unable to show you on this platform. For that, please subscribe for my Telegram channel. You may find it in the video description just below. Yeah, this platform is kind of the restrictive for the combat images. That's why also, if you want to support my job on YouTube, which I do daily, you may join my Patreon page. It is also available with the link below, or you may scan the QR code available on the screen. Recently, most of my videos were demonetized. That is why I rely on your support on Patreon. Thank you for your kind support. Alright, we have some interesting news spread by the Russian media. It seems like Ukraine launched some of the fake ADM-160 mount missiles to spot the Russian air defense systems in Crimea. How does it work? Well, basically Russian raiders spot missiles, so they activate their own signal because they send the signal and receive it from the missile. At the same time, AWACS airplanes or surveillance drones of our allies spot the Russian raiders in Crimea, and they send signal to Ukraine about the Russian air defense positions. It is important to know the location of the Russian air defense to program drones or cruise missiles or other tools to avoid the areas of the Russian defense or, in some of the cases, to target the Russian defense. Also, Russia continued to lose their air defense systems on occupied Ukrainian territories. This time it is the Russian Buk. A North Korean ship full of the Russian munition was spotted in one of the Chinese ports. We have this information from the United States intelligence, and they already asked China to explain of what is happening, why the Russian munition is in the Chinese ports. But probably you know the answer. China is the ally of the Russian Federation, so they help as they can. Yesterday I told you that Russia delivered some of the Western-made vehicles to Moscow, which they were able to trophy from Ukrainian army, including one of the Leopard tanks, Bradley and others. So they want to show those vehicles to Russians during the parade on 9th of May. Kind of interesting, and they took this idea from Ukraine actually, because Ukraine put the Russian vehicles on the main street and the main square of Kiev during the Independence Day celebration. But we had a long convoy of those vehicles. I wonder how many of those units Russia has. Alright, we have the photo confirmation that definitely Ukraine started to use the small ultralight airplanes as the drones to hit the Russian facilities. One of those drones was spotted on the Russian territory carrying a huge bomb. I guess the weight of it is at least 150 kilograms. Well, at first I thought that it is the Aeropract A-22, but it doesn't look like that because the wing construction and the fuselage is a little different. So probably there is a separate branch which is making those airplanes, and it has some of the systems which help the drone operator to navigate, and the other equipment is located in the cockpit. What happened to this particular unit, we are out of clue. I think that there could be some of the issues with the engine. Unfortunately, Russia obtained almost intact unit, as you see, so they might analyze the construction and produce those kind of the drones on their own. But they already have the Shahed drone production, so I don't think that they will invest in this stuff. The good thing for those kind of the drones that they are not very expensive and able to cover thousands of kilometers. The declared range of it is more than 2,000 kilometers. For sure, it is capable to fly that far. An interesting move from the United States to support Ukrainian aviation. They bought several of the written-off airplanes, fighter jets from Kazakhstan via the third countries, and they're willing to supply those to Ukraine. Ukraine might use those airplanes for the spare parts to maintain the current Soviet fleet. We are speaking about MiG-29, Sukhoi 27 and Sukhoi 24, which is the tactical bomber and also the launcher for Storm Shadow and Scalp cruise missiles. Ukraine still has capabilities to maintain its airplanes with the proper supplies and the spare parts. Kind of the interesting video. Warning, could be a jump scare. Oh my god, those were Sukhoi 25 attack airplanes. I wonder from what side. Well, I got this video from the Russian side, so probably it is the Russian drone, and those are Ukrainian attack airplanes. One of the UK-British officials, Tony Radakin, said that Ukraine will intensify the strikes deeper and deeper inside the Russian territory with the new military support from the Allies. Well, I wonder about the actual Russian territory or just Crimea in this case. So we also have those signals from our allies in UK. It means that in a nearby future we'll see many more kabooms. My friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And as always, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.